All right, I think that we are live here, so I am so excited about this and happy to be with you. And I am looking forward to helping you out here. We are going to discuss the pretty significant topic here of how to freeze your credit. So forgive me a little bit for just getting going here and being a little slower on the um, transitions, but I wanted to just this topic up because you may or may not be aware, but Alibaba, who is the Chinese Amazon, just did $31 billion in sales over their Singles Day last week, and that is a huge amount of money. But I think that the U.S. is going to give them a run for their money with the upcoming Cyber Monday. If you're not familiar with what Cyber Monday is, it is a holiday where the a lot of companies in the U.S. give a discount for ordering online. Basically, it's the digital version of Black Friday, so that you can get a lot of great deals online. But when you go and make purchases online, you're subjecting yourself to the risk of getting the information that you give hacked, and that can have some big issues for you, regardless of where you are in your life. But it's really significant if you are close to retirement, because you probably have your highest net worth that you've ever had closer to your retirement, and so it's so important to protect your identity, protect your finances, and make sure that you're in good standing. And so I put together this course on freezing your credit, and I'm going to walk you through the first section here just so that you understand what the course covers, but more importantly, you walk away with some really good information that you can take action on today. So, of course, this information is not financial advice for you, and you shouldn't act on it without consulting a professional about your situation. However, if you have any questions, make sure that you reach out to me using the contact information below. So, in this course, we're going to talk about the different components that are involved with freezing your credit. And it's pretty straightforward, because the credit freeze itself is just limiting the ability for other people to access your credit. So here are a few reference URLs that you can go to if you want more information. A lot of the information came from consumer.ftc.gov, the FTC website itself. I also used the NerdWallet website, which is pretty good. And then you'll need to go to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion in order to actually freeze your credit there. So in this course, I go through how you can freeze your credit with all three credit bureaus, what you need to do to unfreeze your credit, why you should be using some other tools like a password manager. I've been using this thing now for almost a month and a half, and I'm already up to about 85 different passwords, which is pretty crazy. But it's really given me a good understanding of how many passwords most people have to remember. And one of the vulnerabilities that we have is that we use the same password for every single website. And so if you're in that situation, then a password manager can be really good. The reason that I recommend it is twofold. First off, very strong passwords. Secondly, you can share your passwords easily with somebody very quickly. All you have to do is give them authorization. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm also going to talk about two-factor authentication. This is multi-factor authentication. You may or may not be aware of that. And then we'll also talk about LifeLock. LifeLock is a identity protection service, and it's very strong. It has a lot of great features. We'll talk more about that as well. And then finally, we'll talk about using a virtual private network. So that's what the course itself will cover. Today, we're just going to walk through some of the key points with freezing your credit with one of the major bureaus, which is called Equifax. So why do you want to freeze your credit? Well, in 2016, identity theft cost consumers $16 billion, right? One of the most profitable crimes out there today is identity theft, because a lot of the what do you call it? The police and the law enforcement, they haven't really caught up yet to prosecuting the identity theft. And really, it's because there's just so much more activity online, so much more e-commerce now, that people are spending more money. There are new tactics, and then the law enforcement agencies are always slow to react. So it's really important that you're proactive in protecting your credit, because if you're not, what can happen is that you could be subject to covering some of these expenses, some of these costs here yourself. So what is a credit freeze? Well, a credit freeze is a way of limiting the ability for any new credit line or new credit account to be opened under your name. And it allows an individual to restrict and control access to your credit report. So someone is not going to be able to open up a new credit account if you have your credit frozen. Essentially, what you've done is you've told the credit reporting bureaus that you don't want new credit accounts. And as a result of that, they are not going to allow for new credit accounts to be open unless you have given the direct authorization. So this is the most secure way that you can go about protecting your finances, but it's also it comes at a cost. It's going to cost a little bit of time. It's also going to cost some effort, on your end of going online and submitting the forms or what have you. The biggest thing is that anytime you want to open a new credit account, not an existing account, a new credit account, what you have to do is you have to unfreeze your credit with whatever bureau, and then you have to wait a couple days. So you're not going to be able to just go and open up a new credit account, whether it be buying a car or opening up a new credit card immediately. Instead, that process is going to be delayed a little bit. So you do have to take that into account. But I think that those are minor inconveniences. The fees vary based on the state that you live in and the reporting agency, but it's really only $5 to $10. And it's so much more cost effective than if you have to deal with getting your identity stolen and losing access to your accounts. So I think that that's really significant, and it makes it well worthwhile. So the credit freeze is it's just going to make it more difficult for any scammers, thieves, or any other unauthorized people to access your account without your permission. And it's also going to allow you to tell the credit reporting bureaus that you don't want any new accounts open. So this is, again, very significant and a good tactic when you are getting ready to retire, because you're going to preserve your net worth, your asset, and you're also going to make it more difficult for folks to steal your identity or to open up any new accounts under your name. So why should you freeze your credit? Well, the first thing is that you're going to be proactive instead of reactive. And what I mean by this is that, most people don't take action on these types of things until it's too late, until they've gotten a notice from their bank or from their credit card or from their credit bureau saying that there's a new account open. And this is very troublesome, because the repercussions following a hack or having your credit stolen are very significant, and it can have a big impact not only on your finances but also on your livelihood, your ability to earn a living. And especially if you're in the financial services field or if you're in a secure environment, this is very significant. So you want to make sure that you're always being proactive and doing what you can, playing defense up front rather than being reactive and waiting until something happens. So that's the first thing. The next reason is that you want to limit new accounts from being opened without your knowledge. Anytime that someone opens a new account, you want to be aware of it, because you hope that you already know up front that it's you who is opening that account. The reality is that when you've seen the credit hacks, whether it be Target, we had Equifax, which was a huge one. If you are in the government, you know that the OMB was hacked. So there are a lot of vulnerabilities as to how people can get access to your information. And those are just some of the major hacks. There are a lot of other tactics that are going on right now with phishing, where people send other deceptive emails, or they'll even impersonate you on the phone in order to get access to some information about you and steal your identity. So you want to make sure that you're doing all that you can to limit that from happening. Finally, you want to protect your finances and your credit. This is so important because it's easier and less expensive to do it up front than to have to worry about the repercussions after the fact and try to put your life back together after a credit hack. So what are the factors that affect a credit freeze? Well, first off, the credit bureau itself. Each bureau, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, are going to have their own rules related to freezing your credit. Also, the state that you live in is going to have its own laws and legislation around freezing your credit. If you've been a victim of identity theft before, you may have access to some free tools provided by the government, but that's going to impact your ability to do a credit freeze, or some of the steps that you want to take when you do a credit freeze. And then finally, your age. I think that folks who are older are more likely to be targets during are more likely to be targets for identity theft because they have more money. Right, it's pretty straightforward. I forget who said it, but a famous bank robber once said, "Why did you rob the bank?" And he said, "Well, that's where the money is." And when you think about from a demographic standpoint, somebody who's in their 60s getting ready to retire probably has a lot more money than somebody who is, in their 30s, who is just starting to build wealth, just starting a family or whatever. So you want to be aware of that, and you want to be proactive in making sure that you protect your credit. Now, how do you go about freezing your credit? So the first thing that you want to do is either call or go online to complete the freeze request for each credit bureau. So the big thing here is that each credit bureau is going to have its own forms and its own process for you to freeze your credit. So you have to go to each of their websites. You have to go to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion individually, complete their form, pay their fee, and then you can freeze your credit. So it's not like there's one option that would allow you to do it all in one fell swoop. Again, it's not really hard. It only will take you about 20-30 minutes max, and that's for each bureau. So you're talking about an hour and a half. But when you consider that it could save you a lot of headache and a lot of hassle, it's probably well worth the time. Next, if you want to lift the freeze because you want to get a new line of credit, whether it be because you are purchasing a new car, or because you want a new, you want to refinance your home, you want a new credit card, whatever the case may be, you can't access that credit until you unfreeze your credit with the rating agencies. The reason being is that any time that a lender is going to give you credit, they want to know what is your history, what is your credit score, etc. And so they have to pull your credit report, and they're not able to do that unless you lift the freeze. And so you need to decide, is this going to be a temporary lift or a permanent removal of the credit freeze? I would just say to do a temporary lift because it's really easy to lift it and then also to put it back in place. Again, the fees are going to range based on the credit bureau in your state and your situation, but it's about $5 to $10 per credit bureau. And then finally, it'll take you 3 to 5 days to have the freeze put in place. So it's not instant, but it's something that can be done pretty quickly. So what happens after my credit's frozen? Well, a credit freeze is going to limit access to your credit report, thereby limiting the ability for new accounts to be opened. And existing creditors or debt collectors are still going to have access to your credit, as well as the government. So you don't have to worry about an existing line of credit, being compromised or anything happening to that, because it's only preventing new accounts from being opened, because a new account can't be opened unless there is access to a credit report. And if you have limited that access, then you've effectively limited the ability for new accounts to be opened. So that's the way that that works. Now, a lot of people have various questions about what happens when you freeze your credit. So does a credit freeze affect your credit score? No, credit freeze does not affect your credit score. It's also not going to impact your ability to get your free credit report, or to keep it's not going to keep you from opening up a new account. But if you want to open up a new account, you have to lift the freeze temporarily. And it's not going to prevent thieves from making charges to existing accounts. So if you have an existing account, this is just going to help you to avoid for new accounts to be opened. I've heard some ridiculous stories about people who have opened up auto loans, mortgages, all kinds of different payment structures with different entities. And so having that credit freeze in place is going to allow you to avoid some of those headaches. However, you still have to be diligent about your use of other credit accounts. And that's why later on you're going to become familiar, if you're not already, with some of the different tools that can help you do so. So Equifax is one of the credit rating agencies. I want to walk you through now how do you freeze your credit with Equifax. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to go to this website, and I'll leave it in the description below, or you just give them a call. But next, they're going to want your name, your address, your date of birth, your social security number, and any other personal information that they may request. So again, this could take you 5 to 10 minutes to complete. But once you receive your freeze request, you're going to be given a PIN that would allow you a personal identification number that's going to serve as the password. And this is going to allow you to make changes to the credit freeze. And the biggest change is that if you want to unfreeze your credit, you're going to have to know that PIN. And so again, I'm going to recommend some tools later on to help you out with remembering all these pins, so that you're not driving yourself crazy, or carrying around a notebook or something like that, and with all of your passwords in it. Instead, what you can do is just use these programs, really simple, easy to access wherever you are, and they're going to allow you to store all your passwords and all your essential information. So the process is really the same for each credit union. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but what you can do is you can use some of the reference links that I'll give you below, and just get the party started, get the process started with just going to one of the websites and starting at least reviewing the application. Again, it's not going to take you longer than 15-20 minutes, and it'll maybe cost $5 to $10 depending on your situation, so it's well worth it. So if you like this program, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, leave any comments that you have below, and if you'd like to watch the full program and learn all these tools, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because what I'll do is I'll do another video on freezing your credit here within the next couple days, and it'll help you out. But if you're serious about protecting your finances and your identity, then you should be proactive. Go to Equifax, start with the application, and get that process started, because it could help you out significantly. And remember, the holidays are right around the corner, and we'll be using our credit cards more often. We'll be buying stuff online, and that makes us more vulnerable to identity theft. And so if you have these measures in place, you've already frozen your credit, then it's going to help you to limit the risk associated with buying stuff online and with having some damage done to your finances. So again, I appreciate you watching this, and I hope that you got some good value out of it. If you did, let me know. Leave any questions or comments below, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot.